Harley Race won the National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Championship 8 times. He held that belt for over 1,800 combined days. He wrestled in every territory across North America, and he competed in Japan over 60 times. He was one of only 2 men that Andre the Giant genuinely feared. This is the story of the toughest man to ever lace up a pair of wrestling boots. Harley Leland Race was born on April 11, 1943, in Quitman, Missouri, a tiny farming community in NWA County. His parents, J. Allen and Mary Race, were sharecroppers who worked land they would never own. Harley grew up alongside his brother Tom and 4 sisters in conditions most people today cannot imagine. They had nothing. Every meal was earned through backbreaking labor in the fields. As a child, Race contracted polio. The disease that crippled so many others only seemed to make him more determined. By the time he reached high school, he had developed into an imposing physical specimen, standing 6 feet 1 inch tall and weighing 225 pounds of solid muscle built through years of farm work. Race's path to professional wrestling began the way many things in his life did, through violence. After getting into an altercation where he attacked his school principal, who had kneed Race in the back of the head while breaking up a fight, he was expelled. At just 15 years old, with no diploma and limited options, Race found work with a local wrestling promoter named Gus Karras in St. Joseph, Missouri. His first job was not glamorous. Race drove an 800-pound wrestler named Happy Humphrey from town to town, earning $5 per day. But Karras saw something in the young man. He introduced Race to the legendary Brisco brothers, Stanislaus and Vladek, former world champions from the 1910s and the 1920s, who lived on a nearby farm. The Brisco brothers were catch wrestlers from the old school. They would put young Race in legitimate submission holds and order him to escape. If he could not, they would crank the hold tighter until he figured it out. This was not choreographed training. This was real wrestling, the kind that could snap bones and tear ligaments if you made a mistake. Race learned quickly because he had no other choice. He also worked the carnival circuit, facing local challengers in shoot matches with real money on the line. If Race lost, the challenger kept the pot. If he got disqualified, he did as well. Using headbutts and submissions, Race rarely lost. These carnival bouts taught him something that would define his entire career. In this business, you either backed up your reputation or you did not have one. Race made his professional wrestling debut in 1959 under the ring name Jack Long. He later teamed with Billy Strong as the Long Brothers in Nashville's NWA territory. He was still a teenager when he won his first championship, the NWA Southern Tag Team title. The kid from the Missouri farmlands was on his way, his debut only just beginning. But the road was never easy. Race bounced from territory to territory, learning the business the hard way. He wrestled in smoky armories and county fairgrounds, earning barely enough to cover gas money to the next town. He slept in his car when he could not afford a motel. He ate when he could afford to eat. The glamour of professional wrestling was nowhere to be found in those early years. Only the grind. What set Race apart was his willingness to do whatever it took. If a promoter needed someone to lose, Race would lose. If they needed someone to make a young star look good, Race would do that too. But when it came time to fight for real, everyone in the locker room knew that Harley Race was not the man to test. His reputation spread through the territories like wildfire. This kid from Missouri was legitimate. On December 14, 1961, 18-year-old Harley Race married Vivian Louise Jones. They were young and in love, with their whole lives ahead of them. Vivian was pregnant with their first child. Approximately 10 days later, on Christmas Eve, tragedy struck. A tractor trailer jackknifed while trying to avoid a snowdrift and slammed directly into their car. Both Harley and Vivian were pronounced dead at the scene. But Harley was not dead. Not quite. Emergency responders found a faint pulse and rushed him to the hospital. Vivian and their unborn child did not survive. Race was barely alive, his right leg so severely damaged that doctors recommended immediate amputation. Promoter Gus Carras rushed to the hospital and declared the amputation would happen over his dead body. A specialist performed a last-ditch operation to save the leg. Doctors told Race he would never walk again, let alone wrestle. Race threw himself into months of intense rehabilitation. The grief of losing his wife and child fueled a determination that bordered on obsession. He would spend hours doing exercises the doctors said were pointless. He would push through pain that would have broken most men. The physical therapists had never seen anything like it. Within 2 years, he returned to the ring. Most men would have quit. Most men would have accepted the doctor's verdict and found another line of work. Most men would have let the grief consume them. Harley Race was not most men. Years later, Race rarely spoke about Vivian and their unborn child. The pain never fully healed, but he channeled that pain into his work, into becoming the best professional wrestler on the planet. Every match, every championship, every brutal war in the ring was dedicated to proving that he would not be defeated. Not by tragedy, not by injury, not by anyone. After brief stints, wrestling under various names, including a run as the Great Mortimer in Boston, Race landed in Dory Funk Sr.'s Amarillo territory in 1964. The elder Funk gave him advice that stuck for the rest of his career. Do not work to make anyone else's name famous. From that point forward, he wrestled exclusively as Harley Race. Race's rise through the territory system was relentless. In 1965, at just 22 years old, he and partner Larry Hennig captured the American Wrestling Association World Tag Team Championship from Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher at a sold-out Minneapolis auditorium. Billed as handsome Harley Race and pretty boy Larry Hennig, the cocky heels would hold the titles 3 times and become one of wrestling's most successful tag teams. 2 weeks after winning the American Wrestling Association Tag Team Championship, Race was at a Minneapolis restaurant when he witnessed a man harassing a woman. He stepped in and knocked the man out cold. But the man's friend came up behind Race and stabbed him 3 times. Race survived and later drove to their house and shot at it in retaliation. This was not a worked angle. This was Harley Race's actual life. Central States. Wrestling in Kansas City became Race's home base throughout the 1970s. He accumulated championships like other men accumulated parking tickets. He won the NWA Central States Heavyweight Championship 8 or 9 times, depending on which records you believe. He won the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship 7 times. He won the NWA Central States Brass Knuckles Championship 4 times. He was a 3-time NWA North American Tag Team Champion. Race also made history in Jim Crockett Promotions as the first ever NWA United States Heavyweight Champion on January 1, 1975. That title lineage continues today as the WWE United States Championship. Every person who has held that belt can trace its history back to Harley Race. His international reach extended to Japan, where his handsome nickname originated, and where he competed over 60 tours for All Japan Pro Wrestling. He feuded with Giant Baba and won the Tokyo Sports Match of the Year in 1978 against Jumbo Tsuruta. Race was a global star before the concept of global wrestling stars truly existed. On May 24, 1973, Harley Race achieved the goal he had set for himself as a young man driving Happy Humphrey from town to town. He defeated Dory Funk Jr. in a 2 out of 3 falls match at Memorial Hall in Kansas City to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion for the first time. The victory ended Funk's remarkable 4.5-year reign. Behind the scenes, NWA officials had ordered Race, known as a legitimate tough guy, not to let Funk leave the ring as champion under any circumstances. The match was worked, but Race was prepared to shoot if necessary. Everyone knew that if it came down to a real fight, Race would win. After a brief first reign of 57 days, he lost the title to Jack Brisco. Race spent the next several years rebuilding himself through regional titles and international tours, proving to the NWA Board of Directors that he deserved another chance at the top. That chance came on February 6, 1977, in Toronto. Race defeated Dory Funk to capture his second NWA World Championship. During the match, Race exploited Funk's legitimate knee injury with an Indian deathlock submission, refusing to release the hold until Funk submitted. This time, Race kept the gold for 926 days, nearly 2.5 years, defending the championship up to 6 times per week across every NWA territory. Being the NWA World Champion in the 1970s was not like holding a championship today. There were no off days. Race traveled constantly, flying from territory to territory, defending the belt against each region's top challenger. He might wrestle in St. Louis on Friday, Atlanta on Saturday, and Los Angeles on Monday. The schedule was brutal, but Race never complained. This was what he had dreamed of since childhood. The NWA World Champion had to be a special kind of performer. He had to be able to work with anyone, from technical wizards to brawlers to high flyers. He had to be able to adapt his style to whatever the local territory demanded. He had to make the challenger look strong enough that fans would pay to see a rematch, while still winning convincingly enough to maintain the championship's prestige. Race excelled at all of this. He also had to be tough enough to handle any situation. There were always wrestlers who thought they could take the title for real, who believed they could shoot on the champion and expose the business. Race made sure everyone knew that trying to shoot on him was a mistake they would only make once. His reputation protected the championship as much as his wrestling ability did. The travel took its toll on his body. Race would later estimate that he drove over 1 million miles during his career, often immediately after wrestling a grueling match. He would finish a main event, shower quickly, and hit the road for the next town. Sleep happened when it happened. Food was whatever he could grab at a gas station. The NWA World Championship was the most prestigious title in wrestling, but carrying it came at a tremendous physical cost. Race's rivalry with Dusty Rhodes produced over 125 career encounters and defined what championship wrestling meant in the late 1970s. Rhodes was the American dream, the son of a plumber who spoke for the common man. Race was the arrogant champion who believed he was better than everyone else. The contrast was perfect. The two men genuinely respected each other, but that respect only made their matches better. They understood that the best feuds came from opponents who could push each other to greater heights. Race brought out the best in Rhodes, and Rhodes brought out the best in Race. Night after night, territory after territory, they told the same story with different chapters. The common man chasing the arrogant champion. Sometimes the common man would catch him. Most times he would fall just short. Their August 21st, 1979 title match in Tampa, where Rhodes captured the NWA World Championship after a devastating elbow drop, won Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Match of the Year. The crowd erupted when Rhodes finally conquered the man who had held them hostage for so long. Grown men wept. Children screamed themselves hoarse. It was professional wrestling at its absolute finest. A moment that justified everything the business could be. Race's promo work against Rhodes was legendary. He once declared that he wanted it publicly known that Rhodes was an egg-sucking dog, that he was yellow and completely gutless. The hatred felt real because in many ways it was. Not personal hatred, but professional hatred. The hatred of a champion who refused to be dethroned. The hatred of a man who believed he had earned everything he had and would not give it up without a war. Race won the NWA World Championship 8 times total. He traded the title with Rhodes, Giant Baba, Tommy Rich, and eventually Ric Flair. His combined reign of over 1,800 days as champion stood as a record until Flair eventually surpassed it. But numbers alone cannot capture what Race meant to the business. The Ric Flair feud launched wrestling's first true supercard, and passed the torch to the next generation. After Race defeated Flair in St. Louis on June 10, 1983, to win his 7th world title, he placed a bounty of $25,000 on Flair's head. Bob Orton Jr. and Dick Slater collected the bounty by delivering a career-ending piledriver to Flair, or so the storyline went. The two rivals built towards Starrcade 1983, subtitled A Flair for the Gold. It was the first major closed-circuit wrestling event, broadcast to theaters across the country. The concept was revolutionary. Fans who could not attend the event in person could watch it live at their local movie theater. Professional wrestling had never attempted anything on this scale before. On November 24, 1983, before 15,447 fans at Greensboro Coliseum, Flair defeated Race in a bloody steel cage match to reclaim the championship. The match was everything fans had hoped for and more. Race bled. Flair bled. Both men threw everything they had at each other inside that unforgiving steel structure. When Flair finally secured the victory, the crowd exploded. A new era had begun. What fans did not know was that Vince McMahon had offered Race $250,000 to no-show the event and sabotage the NWA. Race declined. When they crossed paths in a bathroom, McMahon asked what Race saw in the mirror. Race emphasized his integrity. He had given his word to the NWA, and his word meant everything. In an industry built on deception and worked matches, Harley Race's word was absolute. The Starrcade match won both Pro Wrestling Illustrated and Wrestling Observer Newsletter Match of the Year honors. It established the template for wrestling supercards that would eventually lead to WrestleMania and all the major events that followed. Without that night in Greensboro, professional wrestling might look very different today. Race understood what was at stake. He knew the business was changing, and he did everything in his power to ensure that the NWA went out on top, even if it meant putting Flair over as the new standard bearer. Race invented the diving headbutt, a move he later regretted due to the brain injuries it caused others like Dynamite Kid and Chris Benoit. His signature Harley Race high knee remains referenced by commentators whenever wrestlers execute the move today. Triple H and CM Punk both adopted it as part of their arsenals. His repertoire included the piledriver, brainbuster, fisherman suplex, and the Indian deathlock submission that ended Terry Funk's world title reign. But Race's most defining characteristic was his legitimate toughness. Bobby Heenan famously stated that the only two men in the world that Andre the Giant feared were Meng and Harley Race. Think about that. Andre the Giant, the most physically imposing figure in wrestling history, was genuinely afraid of Harley Race. Bob Roop, an Olympic wrestler who understood the difference between worked matches and real fighting, offered this assessment. To truly beat Harley, you had to end him. That is the ultimate in toughness. Given a choice between him or Andre the Giant, I would fight Andre. I might have been able to outrun him. The stories of Race's real-life fighting are numerous and terrifying. He once broke a Hells Angels biker's nose and finished him with a sleeper hold after the gang challenged him at a show. When Vince McMahon attempted a leg dive during a confrontation over territory expansion, Race stuffed it, choked McMahon unconscious, and put him to sleep. His grip strength was legendary. He allegedly defeated world's strongest man Bill Kazmaier in a game of mercy. Julie Hart, wife of Bret Hart, recalled that nobody liked to shake Harley's hand because he had the strongest tendons ever known to anyone. Mick Foley credited Race as the first wrestler he saw take a clothesline and backdrop to the floor and do table spots years before anyone else. Race was innovating hardcore wrestling before the term existed. He just did it because that was how tough he was. Race joined the World Wrestling Federation in May 1986, managed by his longtime friend Bobby Heenan. Because the World Wrestling Federation policy prohibited acknowledging accomplishments from other promotions, the company created the King gimmick to recognize his pedigree, without mentioning his 8 NWA World Championships. Everyone in the business knew what Race had accomplished. The crown was their way of saying it without saying it. King. The partnership with Heenan was perfect. The Brain was the greatest manager in wrestling history, a man who could talk anyone into a main event and out of any situation. But even Heenan knew his place when it came to Harley Race. This was not some green wrestler who needed guidance. This was an 8-time world champion who had forgotten more about wrestling than most people would ever learn. Heenan's job was simply to enhance what was already there. Brain, on July 14, 1986, Race won the King of the Ring tournament by defeating 6 opponents in one night, including George Steele and Pedro Morales in the finals. The coronation ceremony on August 30, 1986, established his character. Royal crown, purple cape, entrance music from Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition. After victories, Race forced opponents to bow before him while Heenan grabbed their hair. Coronation, his feud with Junkyard Dog culminated at WrestleMania 3 on March 29, 1987, before approximately 78,000 to 93,000 fans at the Pontiac Silverdome. The same event that featured Hulk Hogan body-slamming Andre the Giant also featured King Harley Race defending his honor against the Dog. Race won clean with a belly-to-belly suplex in a loser-must-bow match. Junkyard Dog performed a brief bow per the stipulation, then attacked Race with a steel chair and stole the King's cape. It was a fun moment for the fans, but Race had done the job properly. WrestleMania. Race challenged Hulk Hogan for the World Wrestling Federation Championship throughout 1987 in brutal Texas death matches across the country. Their June 14, 1987 bout at Madison Square Garden featured a piledriver on the floor and vicious chair shots. Race was 44 years old and still working at a level that put younger men to shame. Brutal. Injury ended his in-ring World Wrestling Federation career. At Saturday night's main event 15 on March 12, 1988, a table spot against Hogan went wrong. Race's swan dive headbutt missed when Hogan moved, and the metal table edge punctured his intestines. His son Justin found him near death. The injury required between 300 and 400 stitches inside his body. Injury. Race appeared at WrestleMania 4 in a battle royal while still injured. His final WrestleMania appearance. At the Royal Rumble 1989, Race lost to King Haku in a battle for the crown match, his final World Wrestling Federation bout. The King gimmick he established would continue through Haku, Jim Duggan, and eventually Macho King Randy Savage. Final. After leaving the World Wrestling Federation, Race transitioned to WCW as a manager in 1991. At the Great American Bash 1991, with Ric Flair having left the company amid a contract dispute, Race guided Lex Luger to victory over Barry Windham for the vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship. The finish featured Luger executing Race's signature piledriver, a symbolic endorsement from the King himself. Beginning in July 1992, Race became the primary manager of Big Van Vader, a monster heel weighing 450 pounds, who would dominate WCW for years. At that year's Great American Bash, Vader defeated Sting for the WCW World Championship. Sting suffered cracked ribs and a ruptured spleen from a Vader bomb during the match. Race stood at ringside, guiding his monster to victory. The brutal Vader vs. Cactus Jack feud saw Race use a cattle prod at Halloween Havoc 1993 to secure Vader's victory in a Texas death match. Race was no longer an active competitor, but he remained a presence that commanded respect. When Harley Race managed you, it meant something. Race worked his final matches in November 1993, making 3 substitute appearances against Ric Flair in Florida while Vader was injured. At 50 years old, he could still go when necessary. He was inducted into the WCW Hall of Fame on May 22, 1994. A January 1995 car accident requiring hip replacement surgery ended even his managerial career. Race founded World League Wrestling in 1999 and the Harley Race Wrestling Academy in 2000, originally in Eldon, Missouri, and later relocated to Troy, Missouri. The school's philosophy was simple: shut up and wrestle. Race emphasized old-school fundamentals over showboating. Training required between 300 and 500 hours, with particular emphasis on being the other guy's caretaker. Protecting your opponent while making everything look devastating was the Race way. Race was a demanding trainer, but never cruel. He understood that the wrestlers of the future needed to learn the same lessons he had learned on the Brisco farm and the carnival circuit. They needed to understand that professional wrestling, despite being predetermined, was still physically dangerous. One wrong move could end a career, or worse. Race drilled this into every student who walked through his doors. He taught them how to take bumps without destroying their bodies. He taught them how to throw punches that looked devastating but did not actually hurt their opponents. He taught them how to tell a story in the ring, how to read a crowd, how to adjust on the fly when something went wrong. Most importantly, he taught them respect. Respect for the business, respect for their opponents, and respect for the fans who paid money to watch them perform. Notable wrestlers trained by Race include Trevor Murdoch, who became his first major WWE signing from the school and later won the NWA World Championship himself. Curtis Axel, the son of Race's former tag team partner Larry Hennig, trained at the academy. Tommaso Ciampa, who would become NXT champion, started with Race. Even WWE referee John Cone, who has officiated WrestleMania main events, came through the Harley Race Wrestling Academy. WWE recommended aspiring wrestlers train with Race. Shane McMahon personally directed Joe Hennig to the academy. The school maintained a working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan, where Race sent students for seasoning just as he had traveled to Japan throughout his own career. The tradition continued. The legacy grew. ID RS05D4F6F8933E323 697BD71BA4C8 19289FFABX572AB42. Summary, type, reasoning. The carnival circuits, where he learned to shoot, are a distant memory. The grueling schedule of defending the NWA World Championship 6 times per week across the country no longer exists. But his legacy lives on in every wrestler who executes a diving headbutt, in every high knee strike, in every aspiring champion who trains at his academy in Missouri. It lives on in the respect that veterans show when his name is mentioned. It lives on in the stories that will be told for generations about the toughest man to ever step into a wrestling ring. The territories are gone now, replaced by a global wrestling landscape that Race helped create through his willingness to work anywhere, anytime, against anyone. The NWA World Championship still exists, carried by men who can only dream of matching what Race accomplished with that belt around his waist. And somewhere in Missouri, young wrestlers are still learning the fundamentals at the school that bears his name, being taught to shut up and wrestle, to protect their opponents, to respect the business that Harley Race gave everything to preserve. Like and subscribe for more territory wrestling documentaries. Until next time.